and welcome to the September Human Relations Commission meeting for the City of Palo Alto. Elena, can you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Barr,
Present.
Commissioner Causey,
Present.
Chair Eberly,
Here.
Commissioner Shea, Commissioner Kraus, Commissioner Stimler,
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with public comment. Now it is time for public comment on items not on the agenda. This section of the agenda is where any person can speak to the HRC and express their views. These are the views of individuals and not the views of the city or the HRC. In Palo Alto, we are committed to a culture of acceptance where all members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. We encourage all speakers to honor these values and express their message without intimidation, discrimination, or language that disrespects any person. The public should know, however, that the Brown Act requires cities to accept public comment, and the U.S. Constitution provides strong support for freedom of speech. The city honors these rights even if we strongly disagree with the speaker's message, unless the speaker disrupts the meeting or violates the HRC's rules of conduct. One additional note, if you have come tonight to, oh, never mind. No additional note. Go ahead. Do we have anybody, Elena?
Yes, we do.
Okay. You have 3 minutes.
Our first in-person speaker is Michelle.
Thank you. In a guest opinion piece in the New York Times on October 31st, 2023, journalist Rosina Ali said, and I quote, "In the United States, it's as if the country has turned back the clock 2 decades. I've been speaking with lawyers, community groups, and advocacy organizations that work closely with Muslims after September 2001 about what they were seeing. Not since that time, not even after the election of Donald Trump, have I heard so many Muslim and Arab community members say they feel isolated. After living through and reckoning with the devastating aftermath of the war on terrorism, it seems the lessons of September 11 have been forgotten," end quote. I am here tonight with a heavy heart and a deep sense of disappointment in this city. The decision by the mayor to at the very last minute withdraw support, including funds, for the beautiful and somber multi-faith picnic and vigil for peace that has been running for 21 years due to co-sponsorship by one of 20 organisations is a disgrace. CARE has been a co-sponsor of this event for years and is the premier civil rights organisation representing the Muslim community across the United States. A Palestine litmus test was applied so inappropriately, and the smear used to justify withdrawal is a textbook example of both anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian racism. Ironically, it's out of the exact same playbook that saw our Muslim neighbours living in a state of isolation and fear post-September 11. That only one council member, thank you, Julie, showed up tells me that this city has such a very long way to go and that our Muslim community is sadly right to feel abandoned and unsafe in Palo Alto. Indeed, I believe this was the intention of the fear-mongering, to put the Muslim community in their place. If this body, the HRC, doesn't understand the ugliness they endorsed by withdrawing from the event, along with the city, and not showing up in person last night, it makes me feel there is little hope for change. Thank you to Samina Sundas for her tireless, principled work and the many faith leaders and community members who did show up, despite the blatantly racist fear-mongering. I'm really upset. I'm so sorry to the Muslim community, the Arab community, the Palestinian community, the American Muslim Voice Foundation, for the disrespect that was shown by our city leaders,
Thank you, Ms.
including by this body. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lori M.
Hello, I'm Lori Myers. I'm a 30-year resident of Palo Alto. Thank you to HRC for all you do to keep Palo Alto a place of unity and belonging for all. We are so grateful. You may have heard about an organization called CARE, co-sponsoring yesterday's 9/11 event, and that the city rescinded their $2,000 sponsorship as a result. I could share all kinds of egregious and painful things that CARE has said and done in their own words, like the founder and current national director saying, quote, "I am in support of Hamas." I could share that their Bay Area director referred to the Hamas rapes and murders of October 7th in a tweet as decolonization. I could share that City of Palo Alto isn't the only group that's distanced itself from CARE. That list includes the FBI, the Florida House of Representatives, and even the White House. The White House, the Biden administration, has formally disavowed CARE. So the City of Palo Alto is in good company. But instead, I want to share how grateful I am to the city, Chair Eberly, and Commissioner Krause for withdrawing their support for the event, given that CARE was a sponsor. I want to thank them for agreeing that supporting terror should be a red line that we can all agree on. I want to thank them for their moral courage and for
Recording in
standing up for
progress.
what's right. One of the event's participants said that she stands with people with whom we agree about some principles like peaceful and respectful community, even though we may disagree about other things like Israel and Palestine. Well, this isn't a disagreement about politics or the Israel-Palestinian conflict. This is about whether or not you support Hamas, a terror group who in their charter wants to kill Jews like me, my kids, my parents, and my community. Can't we all agree that we don't support terror? Isn't that at least one thing we can unify on? I actually sat in the back at last night's event. It was lovely and wonderful, and the community would have benefited from an opportunity to come together. The event organizer seems like a kind person who wants to do the right thing. I hope she understands the pain and impact of her decision and makes a different one next time. That including a group who supports terror has no place in a peace-loving community bridge-building event. I hope that next year we can really come together and commemorate 9/11 as a community. That's what we all want. Thanks again for all you do. I am so grateful.
The next speaker is Aram. Go ahead, Aram.
You know, Minka, I just sent you a note a few minutes ago asking that I be referred to as Avram Finkelstein. I'm sorry for sending that late. By the way, it's just been announced by the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, that Michelle Krause has received a Lifetime Achievement Award for her relentless, perpetual, and steadfast support of the terrorist state of Israel, the genocidal state of Israel, while evidencing zero empathy or compassion for the Palestinian people. Vice Chair Krause, that award is in the mail. You just keep it up, don't you? And Julie, if you weren't already on the AIPAC hit list, you are now, okay? You got my support forever for showing up and doing that. And to Samina Das, who I've known for 20 years, she was at Monday's Board of Supervisors meeting like I was in opposition to deadly taser. She's been on the forefront of that for many years. She didn't bow to the pressure of the Israeli lobbies here in Palo Alto. She stood steadfast and said, no, I am not taking care of who I contribute to, and I will double my contribution this month to them for standing strong against the Israeli lobby, you deserve for organizing this peaceful demonstration for many years, and what you did in the face of this relentlessly powerful lobby. You deserve a Nobel Prize. And that's to a person that I don't particularly like. We both know that. Neither one of us have ever liked each other, but boy, do I like her principles. Do I like her stand. So I don't think I had intended tonight, by the way, to speak to another council member about another issue that came up last month, but I'll do that at another time. I did want to mention that tonight, the HRC for the county is going to be dealing with the issue of whether there should be a reparations commission in the city of for the county of Santa Clara, and that members will maybe be selected to give their views on that issue to the Board of Supervisors. That's a breakthrough. Palo Alto refuses to do that. I also wanted to let you know that the Sheriff's Department originally requested 1,100 tasers. After a 3-hour meeting on Monday, there was a request for 150. It had been narrowed down to 150, half for the jail and half for the enforcement side. They got 75 of the 1,100 that they originally requested. Is that a victory? We'll see going forward. In any event, it was unclear from the paper whether Eberly and Kraus spoke for the entire city HRC or not. That needs to be clarified. Thank you.
And Avram, just so you know, your name is showing up as your previous name. So that is why I refer to you as such. If you're able to go into your Zoom settings and change it, that would help me remember. But
I'm not sure if I'm that technically savvy.
Okay, I will do my best to remember, but sometimes when you're multitasking, you read the name that's
No,
right.
I hold nothing against you. You're a
Okay.
hero of mine. You're a hero of mine.
Okay, thank you. There are no more speakers, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any agenda changes, additions, and deletions from anybody in the commission? No. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
So Commissioner Stimler has moved. Do I have a second? I'll second. Commissioner Causey. I'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Stimler,
Yes.
Commissioner Barr,
I'm trying, did I miss this? Did I miss this one because of my travels, or was I?
Oh, actually,
You were able to vote just to the
Oh,
form and
okay.
content, even if you aren't here.
you
Okay,
can-
so as long as I can, I vote aye.
Commissioner Causey?
Aye.
And Chair Eberly, aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Okay. We are now on to our first business item. Public hearing, summary of fiscal year 2023, 2024, HUD CDBG program year 2023, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program accomplishments, review of the draft consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, and I'll give it over to staff. Can you please introduce
Thank you, Chair.
yourselves?
Of course, thank you. My name is Rebecca Atkinson, and I'm a planner on the Long Range Planning Team, and I'm the CDBG Program Manager for the city. I am joined here tonight with colleagues, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce them because both are new to the city CDBG program. We have online Austin Knudsen, who's our CDBG Program Lead for Palo Alto. He's a housing and community development project manager at Michael Baker International, and Austin will be giving our CAPER presentation tonight. And I'm also joined by Julia Knight, a principal planner in the Long Range Planning Division. So thank you. And so I'd also like to make a few remarks. We more recently came to the HRC in earlier this year to bring forward the annual action plan for CDBG and COVID CARES Act funds. for fiscal year 2024, 2025, and council approved the subrecipients recommended by the HRC. So that is in the works. So tonight, we're actually in a regular cycle with the CDBG program, instead reporting back on what happened last fiscal year, meaning like where did the money go and who benefited from the previous action plan, which is fiscal year 2023, 2024. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Austin. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that intro. I know we have a slide presentation. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see that on my end. Excellent. As Rebecca mentioned, we're here to talk about fiscal year 23-24 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, also known as CAPER. Next slide. Our purpose in presenting to the HRC is to go over year-end accomplishments during that 23-24 CDBG program year, as well as conduct a public hearing and allow for public comment on the CAPER. As Rebecca introduced us, we are the CDBG team, myself, Austin Knudsen, consultant lead with Michael Baker International, Rebecca Atkinson, CDBG program manager, and Julie Knight, interim principal planner. Next slide, please. The CDBG program is a federal program that provides funding to local and state governments for community development activities and has three primary national objectives. One, benefit low and moderate income persons. Two, aid in the prevention or elimination of slums or blights. And three, meet urgent community development needs. And the city's CDBG program has primarily been focused on the first objective. Next slide, please. The city is required by HUD to submit this year-end report, and it details the accomplishments and progress identified in the city's 5-year consolidated plan and summarizes specific achievements for each program or project funded during the program year. Next slide, please. During the 23-24 fiscal year, we had $514,242 in entitlement funds, $300,000 in prior year allocation, and $80,825 in program income. Next slide, please. Projects and activities we funded during the 23-24 program year include Alta Housing, Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County, Life Moves, Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, Project Sentinel, Peninsula Healthcare Connection, and the city supported the program via planning and administration. Next slide, please. We also funded the Public Works ADA Curb Ramp Improvement Project, Rebuilding Together Peninsula, as well as We Care. Next slide, please. The accomplishments during the 23-24 program year, Alta Housing assisted 145 residents, Catholic Charities assisted 50, Life Moves assisted 193 homeless or very low income individuals. Silicon Valley Independent Living Center assisted 24 adults with disabilities. Next slide, please. Peninsula Healthcare Connection assisted 114 individuals. Project Sentinel assisted 19. Move Mountain View assisted 62. We Care assisted 19 micro enterprises. Next slide, please. Again, the city supported the program via administration, and we hope to begin progress on the ADA curb ramp improvement this month, if not starting fall 2024. In housing rehabilitation, Rebuilding Together Peninsula assisted 6 households. Next slide, please. And we did not receive any comments during our public comment period, which ended this morning. And HUD requires that we submit this CAPER by September 28th, 2024. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now, did you need to officially, or did you already officially open the public comment or the public hearing?
Oh, yes. Please accept public comment on the CAPER, including any comments from the HRC commissioners.
Yes, I was gonna, can we go around and see if there are any questions and then open
Yes,
for public comment?
That's fine. It just felt like people were looking at me, so I
No.
said something.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any comments or, sorry, questions before we go to public comment? Yes, Commissioner Barr.
Yes, I have a question because I have worked with the CDBG program a couple times in previous years, both for the construction of the Opportunity Center for the Homeless, but also for the 801 Alma housing. And then also there is a 10-unit apartment complex on Alma that we bought, that the Palo Alto Housing was supposed to get $900,000 and they couldn't use it because their project fell through. And rather than turn it back to the federal government and lose $900,000 per year, our nonprofit bought a 10-unit apartment complex called Alma Garden. But in those years, substantial amounts of money was available for the acquisition or construction of housing. But this is much less than it was then. So question one is, what has led to the decreased amount of CDBG funding we receive? And two, what has led to the emphasis on services and less on construction of housing?
Austin, could you speak to potentially the trends in HUD funding and so forth? But I can speak to the fact that I did see, since the start of my tenure on the CDBG program, CDBG money did go to housing rehabilitation and acquisition quite frequently in past years. And I would say that it's the amount of money going to public services still remains at 15% of the funds available, not because there isn't a dramatic need for public services or housing rehabilitation or anything like that. It's just the HUD requirements limit the amount of money that can go into the public services category. So our funding levels, the great majority of the names on the list are in the public services category, but it actually is limited by HUD rules to only be 15% of our allocation. And in general, it seems like our allocation has been around $500,000 for at least the past couple of years. And I'm not sure exactly how long that's been going on, but 500,000 is a lot less than some millions that I saw in the past. Austin, do you have any further thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. CDBG allocations are determined by HUD via complex formulas. Unfortunately, it's not something the city has control over. Furthermore, CDBG isn't a very large allocation, as Rebecca mentioned, where rehabilitation or even development of affordable housing, CDBG is not necessarily the best source of funding for that, but it can be used for gap funding. And I did want to mention that CDBG is funding rehabilitation of Alma Garden, and we are currently working on getting to bids with the developer for that work, and we should hopefully have that completed by springtime 2025.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have a question, Commissioner Smith?
CR 15 resources and investments 91,528. I might have missed it, but this is my question. I know that from the narrative, it took 24 months. Does that affect what we get from the federal government in the future? Or we're hoping the narrative holds and they still keep us at the same funding level?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, please?
CR 15, resources and investments, public federal, you said 8975, resources made available, amount expended 400,000, approximately 400,000. CDBG-CV, resources made available, $746,413, and then only $23,689.29 was there. You gave a comprehensive narrative. My question becomes this, out of ignorance, is does this impact our CDBG funding in the future from the federal government because we weren't able to expend the funds?
I can take a stab at that, and Austin might also have additional remarks. Generally, it's really important to spend all of our allocation.
I've heard that
Yes,
for years.
Yes. And our CDBG program has actually programmed out our federal funds each year as required. And we do have some projects that were previously allocated funding for. They ended up declining the money and so forth. So in terms of resources made available, it's obviously more than the allocation for that year and so forth. And then in the presentation, we had a line item for money that was available from prior years. So we are being monitored by HUD for spending. Our annual action plan that we took to council fully allocates all of the funding that we have for this year, as well as leftover from prior years. And so we're really excited about the amount we're able to fund for Alma Gardens, which is around 400,000. So that will, go greatly towards the improvements and the rehabilitation needed for that project. It'll help us with our spending levels. We're also spending a significant amount of money at the Home Key site to do a childcare recreation yard. And so with other projects in this year, we should be able to meet our timely spending. So while your comment is noted and a real concern, hopefully we've addressed this in our current action plan.
And you don't have to go through any more red tape to do the projects that you have on your docket this year. They've all been through council, whoever has to approve them.
I hope we don't have any more red tape. I don't think we do, other than contracting.
Okay.
The normal administrative process.
They taught me a new word when I moved here. It was called the Palo Alto process. So I pray that you don't have to deal with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. I was surprised to see that Life Moves was able to help so many more individuals that they expected. Do you know why that is?
You're referring to their case management?
Yes.
Yes, great. Austin, could you speak to the numbers in the Life Moves report on their beneficiaries?
Yes, thank you. Great question. Yeah, they had that goal, which is very similar to their goal from previous program year. In monitoring them, they expressed that the program is going very well and really become almost synergistic with the opportunities and the ability to help people.
Do you know how they were able to, I guess because I remember from being on the CDBG committees before, you really have to tie the amount of money to what your goal is going to be. So I'm surprised that there's I'm happy about it, but it just seems like a huge discrepancy between the amount of money that they thought they needed to assist, 15, and they were able to assist, 27, and they were actually able to assist 193 with the same amount of money. Commissioner Barr?
I know that during the pandemic, the staff at the Opportunity Center was very, very strict as to who they let inside the services center. And so the number of clients coming in for day services went way down. And then after the pandemic restrictions were lifted, then I think is when lots more folks started coming back to the not necessarily just the housing, but the day services center where they have food, they have coffee, they talk to case managers, you can take a shower, do your laundry and so on. So I'm going to suspect that with the lifting of the restrictions that were in place at the Opportunity Center during the pandemic, that a lot more people came back for services.
Any other insight?
Austin, do you have any other additional insight into the operations at the Opportunity Center offered by Life Moves?
I do not. Thank you, Commissioner Barr, for that insight.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, you have a question?
And I'm sorry if you went over this. As I look at the affordable housing, which is a significant challenge in our area, we seem like in our strategic plan there was 107 rental units that we targeted to rehabilitate, and we have 0% done. And then household and homeowner housing rehabilitated household housing units, out of the strategic plan of 40, we only had 12. What is there a lack of interest? Is there a lack of communication? What do you think is the challenge in that space?
Well, my tenure hasn't been, since the genesis of the comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I know that Rebuilding Together, who contributed significantly to helping homeowners, I know that they are actively looking for homeowners that qualify and doing outreach and so forth. But there has been some difficulty that they've experienced with finding homeowners that qualify to meet the eligibility requirements of CDBG. And then in terms of targeted for rehabilitation, oftentimes, we put out notices of funding availability each year, and we receive many public services category applications. And, unfortunately, we're limited by the amount of money that could be distributed in that category, as mentioned earlier. So, there's the applications reflect need for even maybe more funding in the public services category, but CDBG can only do it with what we can do. And in the remainder, we are able to fund projects, such as the ADA curb ramp and improvement project and other projects of that nature. At that time that we do our notice of funding availability, affordable housing developers, project owners and things like that are able to submit applications, and we have not received applications for affordable housing rehab in the last couple of years, other than Alma Gardens, which we funded. So I would say, long story short, it's a lack of applications in the housing rehab category.
Who and when is that shared, and what are the criteria
In the NOFA?
for the rental units rehabilitation and the homeowners? When does the funding go out? Because I know there are many seniors that are struggling to maintain homes here, and I know there's some older homes but I just don't know, is it because of even if you're broke in Palo Alto, you might not meet HUD standards because you're not broke to the rest of the nation kind of statistics. So I'm just trying to clarify, is that one of the hurdles?
If people are interested in finding out if they qualify for the homeowner assistance, there's funding available for more homeowners in this current fiscal year. And so it's a matter of connecting people with Rebuilding Together Peninsula to do that specific process. And so that's one way of answering your question. And then in terms of the standards for like what the income levels are and other requirements for accessing the Rebuilding Together program. Austin, I might point to you if you could clarify a little bit more about LMI and some of the parameters for the home ownership aspect of it and qualifying for that type of home improvement.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. CDBG, one of the requirements is 70% of all funds need to go to low to moderate income. That is 80% of area median income. So it is hopefully tailored well to the county or the metropolitan area. But as Rebecca mentioned, the people who do qualify may not know and may not connect with RTP, or perhaps those that are interested aren't qualified. But I do want to say that 6 houses with 72,000 in funding is pretty efficient. I do work with another Rebuilding Together chapter, and they're in a lower income city, so they're able to find more applicants, but it is still difficult. They usually average double to maybe 2.5 times the number in a year, but at the same time, the amount per project is double, if not triple. So Rebuilding Together Peninsula, this chapter is doing a great job and is using those funds very efficiently, I believe.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this topic? No? Okay. Any comments from any other commissioners?
Adriana, can you just remind us the next steps with the CBG? They come back to us. What's the next funding cycle?
This is a CAPE. It would be a whole new cycle. This is the end of
This is the end
That's
of
right.
the cycle.
Yes.
I have not received any timing from my colleagues in the planning department regarding the next cycle. Which are the two commissioners that are on CDBG? Commissioner Causey and Commissioner Burke? Yeah. Okay. Great.
You're on the next CDBG round? No, for the next fiscal year. Yes. Go ahead, son.
I don't know the answer to this yet, but I hope I will know later on in September. This year is going to be a little bit different, and perhaps Austin might actually also have some remarks on this, but it's time to update the city's consolidated plan. And so the county has kicked off the county consolidated plan update process, in which case jurisdictions are also participating and cost sharing and so forth. And so we're awaiting the final contract signing and the release of the schedule to prepare the update. Our consolidated plan update, it would be 2025, 2030, as well as the corresponding annual action plan for fiscal year 2025, 2026. So this happens, I guess, once every 5 years. Austin, do you have any other remarks?
Thank you,
think.
Rebecca.
Oh.
Yes, we're getting ready for the 5-year consolidated plan, which also includes that first annual action plan. Some of the first steps that we'll take are reevaluating the city's citizen participation plan, making sure it's in alignment not only with HUD requirements, but what the city would like require. We're going to begin developing the analysis of impediments, looking at barriers to affordable housing and essential public services. All of that is going to develop priority needs and goals, which will be then the strategic goals in the consolidated plan. And as I mentioned during the presentation, the annual action plan will project what we would like goals to be from that strategic plan. And then the CAPER will report back what we actually accomplished during a single program year.
Go ahead, Commissioner Barr.
Yes, I just want to, we're moving on next item to the senior adults learning project, but also remember that my liaison as a commissioner is with Avenidas, and I'm on the board of Avenidas. And we heard the commission heard before I was on it about the Avenidas survey of seniors, the community assessment survey of older adults that was done. And let's just not forget that the number one issue confronting seniors in our community is housing, especially those earning less than $75,000 a year. 2/3 of seniors in our community said affordable housing is their main concern. So as we're talking about CDBG, future master plan, let's not forget about the information we have about the need for affordable housing for low-income seniors in our community.
Thank you. I thank you so much for coming and presenting to us. Good luck. And thank you, members. So, I don't know who served on this CDBG commission, 2023, 2024. Is it?
It becomes a blur very quickly. I'm
It
sorry.
was me.
No, we were I think we are the next one. We did 2024, 2025.
okay.
I know it goes way back. So and it's been a while, but thank you to whoever. I don't recall anymore, and thank you for coming here.
And do we have any public comments?
No, we already went to
Okay.
public comment.
Okay,
There was
great.
no public comment
All right, thank you
So,
so much.
Thank you both.
unless. Lithcott Hames, do you have any questions or comments? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Give me 1 second. No. All right. Okay, business item number 2. Commissioner Stimler. She's going to lead us through consideration of next steps and recommendations stemming from our 2023 Older Adults Learning Series.
Sure.
Thank
So I will walk through. So as you all recall, almost a year ago, in October last year, we had a learning session with folks in the community who provide services to our local seniors. And we then just, so people are like, why did it take us a year to get back to it? Immediately afterwards, we switched our focus because of the immediate needs of our Jewish and Islamic, Arab, and Palestinian communities. And so for that reason, we've been a little delayed on this, but I think it's great that we're coming back to it now. And so I went back and I re-listened to that listening session, and just to refresh everyone with what the major concerns were that we heard. Well, actually, first, let me just remind folks of who we heard from. Alta Housing, Avenidas, La Comida, Linton Gardens, the JCC, and Second Harvest Food Bank all joined us, and all with their different perspectives, which was great to hear. Some of them are more focused on nutrition, some are more focused on housing, some are more focused on social and community building. So it was a really diverse set of folks. Although obviously we didn't hear from every single service provider in the community, it was a nice representation. We heard several key themes, just again, so that we can kind of start start back up from what we learned in that learning session. One was also, should I spend the time to walk through this, or should we? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so the first one was transportation, and this one was heard almost unanimously across all of the different kinds of service providers we heard from. There are many programs in Palo Alto for seniors, but the biggest challenge for seniors is often getting to those. And we had a discussion around the link. There was concerns that perhaps residents weren't aware of the link service. Perhaps there wasn't enough education or potentially advertisements in other languages. The other concern with Link is that it only works within the city of Palo Alto, so it's not great for folks who need to go to medical appointments, for example, in Redwood City or Mountain View. And we did hear from some of the service providers that they would help us to advertise the link, although I'm not even sure if we took them up on that offer, frankly, or whether or not maybe there's more we could do with local service providers to get information out about the link. There were also concerns from seniors who walk downtown about the public safety of walking, and there was unfortunately a casualty of an elder, or maybe it was a deferred casualty. There was someone who was injured severely while walking across the street from Linton Gardens, and that created a lot of concern within that community. And one of the nice things about that community is that it is close enough that folks can walk downtown. There's also concern around bicycles on sidewalks. And a lack of police patrolling or visible police patrolling that also makes people concerned for their safety. So that was sort of on the transportation topic. There was also some concern around space for programs. La Comida, I know that some of this there's been movement on the La Comida front since we met a year ago on this topic. However, they are still in a bit of a limbo, I think, for another year. With trying to provide space, a larger enough space so that they can provide as many meals as possible. There was also a note that the Avenidas Rose Kleiner Adult Day Services facility had to move out of Palo Alto to Mountain View. So again, just two examples of places where space was a major constraint for some of our service providers. Another major theme was support for caregivers, and I thought this was an interesting theme. What we heard was that 44% of people who are 60 plus are caregivers for others, either caregivers for their children, caregivers for their spouse, or even potentially caregivers still for their own family, their own parents. And so there's a lot of seniors who are both need caregiving, but also who are themselves caregivers. And so there was a request for more support and resources around caregiving within our community. Under the major heading of food and nutrition, we heard from La Comida and Second Harvest Food Bank, both of whom provide nutritional services to seniors. And there was concerns obviously around affordability for food as inflation has impacted our seniors with limited budgets. And a need for more culturally sensitive food programs since we have such a diverse set of elders in our community. And then to Commissioner Barr's point, housing was of course a major concern, as it is for most. I don't think that seniors are unique in this regard, that the concern was around housing. But Avenidas in their survey found that only 3% of seniors rate the city's cost of living good or excellent. So almost everyone in Palo Alto is concerned about the cost of living, and the cost of housing is the major concern there. And if you'll recall, we had a conversation around how many Palo Alto residents are house rich but cash poor. And finally, there was a discussion around programs where seniors find ways, many seniors have, because they're house rich but cash poor, finding ways of helping them find roommates who would be safe and friendly. And there was a discussion around programs in other cities that had worked, but it was unclear from the conversation whether or not there was a program in Palo Alto or a program in a nearby community that hadn't worked that well, but there are other cities that have had success with that. And then finally, just a few smaller requests that didn't make it into overall budget buckets. One was that technology, just remembering that sometimes seniors continue to need help finding ways to connect through technology, especially through social media, communicating with their families, in video chats and Zoom. Actually, it was you, Commissioner Commissioner Smith, who mentioned that there were federal grants available for digital divide services for our elderly. A need for and remembering that many people who are seniors are grieving, and that grief services continue to be very valuable for those who have lost friends and spouses. And then finally, there was a request. It was kind of one of the instant wins I think we got from that learning session was that so many of our elder service providers came together and we were able to share their information across so that they had connections within, because that was something that they all seemed excited about at the time. So that's where we landed. I'd love to just have a conversation around where we think we could make a substantial impact or where we could move forward in some of the topics that were discussed.
Thank you, Commissioner Stimler. Should we go to public comment and then we can have a discussion? Or
That's completely up to you, Chair.
I think if we have any public comment, why don't we do that in case we have public comment that we can then address during our discussion?
So if you are online or in person, if you'd like to give public comment to the Older Adults Learning Series next steps, please raise your hand now. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to our discussion. Any comments right away? Commissioner Barr?
You want to guess what I'm going to talk about? A little bit of Palo Alto history. Was it 2011, I think, that the city council approved Alta Housing's Maybell housing project, that then a group of residents from that community filed a petition for a referendum on the city council's approval of the Maybell housing project. And we know what happened. Who was going to be housed at Maybell? Who knows? Anybody?
Seniors.
Low-income seniors. Here's another little one, 801 Alma. I was leading the nonprofit that was developing 801 Alma, which is the 50 units of affordable housing at Homer and Alma, just by Whole Foods. We actually had a contract with Hassett Hardware that we were going to build a double-sized hardware store underneath on the ground floor and put the housing above it. But they needed tall ceilings for their pipes and lumber. And we were going to then build 35 units of low-income senior housing on the site of the hardware store. We would have had to go 3 feet over the 50-foot height limit in order to have this project. And one of the current city council members was on the planning commission and said, no, you can't go 3 feet over 50 feet. And so we lost the double-sized hardware store and we lost the 35 units of senior housing. So since then, it has been a vacuum in senior housing. But if you are on a fixed income and 40% of seniors rent, and your rent goes up 10 or 12%, and your Social Security goes up 3%. So we need to really keep track. If we're looking at the kind of the principles of what we are talking about, that senior population in our community, we need to be aware of and keep up to date on.
Chair, there was actually a public speaker that wasn't able to hit the button fast enough. So
Okay, we can go over to public comment.
yeah, so Christina, if you are able, yes, she's got it now. So wait for my colleague to get it on the screen and then we'll go from there. Okay, Christina, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. This is Christina Lugo. I'm the president and CEO of Avenidas. We are so incredibly thankful to the city of Palo Alto for our continued partnership. And I just wanted to echo the thoughts of the commission so far. Caregiving is such a need. I've been in Florida my several times this year, but my father actually recently passed away. And so I've been making sure that my mom is safe. And these are issues that are universal. We are all going to be caregivers or need care at some time. And I am dedicated to the Palo Alto community and trying to look at ways to increase this service at Avenidas, as well as you said, grief services that come subsequent to that. I wanted to also just reconfirm that Avenidas is the primary source for senior services in Palo Alto and the surrounding communities. And I look forward to further partnering with the commission on increasing our reach, our services. If you are hearing from the community about services we can provide, I welcome further discussion, and super thankful to Don for his connection between Avenidas and the commission as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I think there's two significant pieces that I think we can be very effective on. I think the first is the calling of a senior summit where we bring together the various service providers, agencies, housing places, all the advocacies, because one of the beautiful intrinsic things that happened was people were like, oh, you do that, I do that, you do that, you do that. And one of the tremendous challenges in Palo Alto is siloing. So I think there's that. I also think in that space, there could be education around a comprehensive plan and lobbying for your rights at the comprehensive plan and talking about what the city needs and what the city needs to do. I think my fellow commissioners so eloquently pointed out the foolishness that has prevented significant progress on housing. And I think with state mandates around housing numbers and things like that, it would be great to get some advocacy happening as we start dealing with comprehensive plans and numbers and housing, and equipping those, how can I say, those constituencies to put their voices, not just at the project, but at the early phases of the dialogue in front of city council. I know this, we are a graying city because young families can't live here, but seniors vote in significant numbers than younger people. So I would encourage, if people are more worried about 3 feet than seniors, it would be encouraging to seniors to say, this might not be the person to vote for us because we can get 30 houses for our constituency. So I think those are the kind of advocacy points we can encourage people. And I can't tell you to vote for it, but I could say, if I'm voting, I'm voting for the guy that's going to support my community or the people. So I think those are the kind of things we can speak to and equip communities, because oftentimes what we fail to realize is that when we coalesce together, we can push issues in really dramatic ways. So.
Thank you for your comment. That made me think, does Avenidas, Commissioner Barr, since you're the expert now, hold
And we
a-
also have another Avenida staff member in the audience.
Okay, hi.
Michelle.
Well, do you want to come to I don't know, if you want to come to the podium and to say something, or I'm going to say it, and if you have something to say, I'd welcome you to come up.
Is
Someone else?
Christina still online?
Oh, yeah, she's still online.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, well, this made me think, and at first I'm going to ask, does Avenidas hold since we have a city council election going on, do they hold a forum or debate geared towards seniors and senior issues? And is that something that maybe you should think about and we can help advertise it?
My name is Michelle Shinseki. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Avenidas. Thank you so much for holding this time. So to answer your question, no, we don't have anything that resembles the debate. One of the things that we try to do as a nonprofit, of course, is to remain impartial to all candidates as they are coming through. But we do have activities and events around sort of political questions that we have seniors sort of forming their own groups and having their own discussions. And that's really, I think, the way that we've heard about it from our staff side.
You know, one critical things, I know a little bit about 501c3 and political activities. A 501c3 cannot ever speak on a candidate, but a 501c3 can educate on the issues and ask candidate stances on issues. So particularly for Commissioner Barr's example, what is your stance on housing for seniors, or what is your record on housing for seniors? I'm not telling anybody to vote for them, or what have you done, because I think asking some pointed questions around those things would really inform those, because it's frustrating in your later days to have to move your whole house and it not gets, it's frustrating. So, and I've the young lady that was the commissioner, I just had to move my mother, who is not that old, but my father passed, and that was a process and a half, and having the right resources, housing, support, it's a critical thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr?
Could I ask you a question? So we just talked about transportation needs of seniors, and we talked about the Palo Alto Link. Could you describe the Avenidas Rides program that they provide for seniors, and whether it's only for Avenidas members or for others?
Great question, Commissioner Barr. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about Avenidas Door to Door, and at last fall, when we got here and we were talking a little bit about the link, we were talking about how these transportation systems connect or sometimes have a hard time connecting with each other. Avenidas Door to Door is a volunteer run with some staff as well. And in a 10-mile radius around Avenidas, we provide rides for older adults, mostly for day-to-day living. So whether it's a doctor's appointment or a hair appointment, it's really an opportunity for a friendly driver who gets to know their clientele, ask questions, and really be sort of eyes on in a way that an Uber driver or Lyft driver really simply cannot be. It is low cost, and if it is beyond the 10-mile radius, we also do sort of Lyft assistance as well. So there's always a friendly voice on the phone to sort of help with that need as well. Beyond that, we are also doing things called Door Beyond Door, which is really to sort of help seniors who might need a little bit more assistance, not just getting into the car, but maybe needs assistance getting into a medical appointment, that sort of thing. But those are some of the things that we want to expand when we think about our door-to-door program.
So what would be helpful in expanding? I mean, sounds to me that getting the city to give more money to Avenidas would solve a lot of the problems.
Of course, always welcome. But I will be honest, and I think when you talk to other transportation programs and services, a lot of them have the same issues. So if they have their own fleet of vans, for example, where do they park them at the end of the day? What are the logistics that are involved? There's also the matter of the radius. So within the 10 miles of Avenidas, we've got a fairly good routine, but as I think you mentioned earlier, older adults, they have appointments in Mountain View or they have appointments in Redwood City. What can we do? How can we assist in this part of it? And we do not have a smooth system. We will say that.
Thank you. Commissioner Causey?
Yes, I've also been getting a lot of feedback on, this is to the question about transportation, about just further comments. I've also been getting a lot of comments about the Palo Alto link and how, the problem with limited service. But this is also during a time where a lot of cities are taking on their own version of Palo Alto link. And I wonder, would it be within our purview? I find working professionally in transportation, so much of the time it is just about breaking down those silos. And I believe San Mateo County now has their own version of basically the link. And I wonder if would it be within our purview to help get different agencies in the room with each other to have a conversation, or recommend that to council?
I don't know if we have any.
We have done that when we did the LGBTQ summit with the providers.
Right. I think I would take that first as I'd like to know more about what the city is doing to be in dialogue with transportation providers. And, we have our own chief transportation officer. We have other city staff that work on transportation on a regular issue. So if there are some very specific questions, I can pass that on to our chief transportation officer or member of his staff. And if there's a time where you'd like a presentation, it's always helpful for me when I reach out to my colleagues. It's like, this is kind of what they're exploring, what ideas they have, but to do so, they need to be more informed, because it's always good to say that they could give you all the information and you could say, yeah, we still want you to, we would still love it if this kind of thing would happen. And since you can't direct staff, you can, sometimes call together groups yourself. I think that would be really odd to call transportation agencies from different places together, but I know our transportation staff has really great contacts regionally.
Perfect. I think that would be just really great to hear back, learning more about how they're communicating with what other cities and counties are doing, because I know I got a call up from somebody in Sunnyvale being like, hey, I hear Palo Alto Link's going really well. We're considering doing something similar, and having all cities communicate is always a good thing.
And I think maybe Councilmember Lithcott-Hames knows more, but I know a lot of what we run into, as you can imagine, is the county line. And I'm not sure with transportation how that works. I don't know if there's reciprocal. You get on Samtrans and they'll give you a transfer, and you get on VTA. I don't know if that happens.
One day we will have seamless transit. One day we will.
So is that is that an action item that we should take, is to reach out to you with a list of questions for the transportation officer?
That certainly could be a transportation, a follow-up item that you can make.
Okay. Do we need to make that official, or is that something?
I think it'd be good to collect them now and then maybe do that all
At the end.
together. I think Councilmember Lithcott-Hames had her hand up if you didn't see it.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you very much. To the most recent point, I think whether it's transportation for seniors or how to support unhoused people in responding to the state's mandate that encampments go away and people, leave even if there's no shelter. Micro-regional solutions are probably the most efficient, effective, and humane way forward. So to not let the boundaries of county preclude us from acting like smart, thoughtful, efficient, effective humans. I'm inspired in saying this, inspired by Mayor Lopez of East Palo Alto, who has said, though he's in San Mateo County, he's interested in us here in Santa Clara County in terms of dealing with this new state urgency around asking unhoused people to get up and leave, even if they have nowhere to go. So, and I was inspired to see Mayor Stone say, you know what, I'm interested in working with Mayor Lopez, even though we are two different counties. I don't know how they're going to do that. It's nowhere near as simple as that, but where there's a will, there's a way. And this may be another example of how seniors are really underserved by the siloism. And in my mind, the HRC's authority lies in, hey, city, you don't realize that you're duplicating resources, or there's a big gap in resources. And if you could figure out how to work with Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, Mountain View, despite the barriers, then maybe we could actually better serve our seniors and maybe save some money. And if there's saving money involved, that's the way into everybody's hearts.
Right, and to piggyback on what the council member said, I would need to check with our transportation system folks. I think they're very aware of like the major lines. I'm not sure as much how they're aware of beyond like Avenidas, maybe what like Menlo Park is doing for senior transportation or Mountain View and those type of programs. So there might be a part that this is kind of a combination. There might be an initial inquiry to our planning department, but they might then go back and, you know, or I would go back as staff and say, okay, they're not as aware. Who wants to do a research project and look into what different cities are doing if, you know, Michelle and her colleagues and or who's doing the door-to-door program? It's still Jillian. You know, to get their contacts, I know Roadrunners and Mountain View, at least for hospital visits and things such as that. So I think if it's a real, you know, if it's a real, like, if the HRC looks at these recommendations, it's like, what do we need, but what can we also do? In the end, it may be a recommendation to the city council, but I think there's some work to do ahead of time.
Minka,
Yes.
I have
Sorry.
a quick question.
Oh.
Isn't there a HISRAP grantee that does the door-to-door delivery and food for seniors? Is that the Catholic group?
That was the Health Trust, and now that is Loaves and Fishes took over that program from the Health Trust.
So on that front, I forgot to mention, but I think it's worth mentioning in dealing as a caregiver with various resources available for my mom. I have learned that Samtrans will come to Palo Alto to pick somebody up and take them to an activity center in Menlo Park, San Mateo County, and VTA will take a Palo Alto person up into San Mateo County and come back. They're both willing to do it to a certain mileage extent. I think it might be 5 miles out of their county lines or 10 or something. If the regional bus systems have figured it out, it's figure outable. So it tells me we can too. The second issue that I just wanted to, the reason I first wanted to bring in was your comment, Chair Eberly, about candidate forums. I thought it was was that your point? Yeah, I thought it was an excellent point. It signals to candidates. I know we have at least one person running for office right now up here. I know when I was running, who offered a forum taught me what mattered in this city. The climate people run forums. The Rotary runs forums. The League of Women Voters runs forums. You know, the labor people run forums. It's high time that the most premier advocate for seniors in our city has a forum. You're demanding to be heard. You're also educating the candidates as well as the community. It's sort of a great way to have some free advertising for your own stuff while bringing everybody up to speed on really important issues. So it's probably too late for this cycle unless you can scramble. But I think certainly in 2 years, it would be a great thing to do.
Just FYI, Albany just had its board of directors meeting last week, and the next one is in 2 months. And the issue of a candidate forum did not come up at the directors meeting. So it's not going to have a directors meeting for 2 more months.
So maybe for next election cycle. But that does not, you know, that you're still allowed to go to another forum and ask those questions, you know. So we got transportation. What about housing? I don't know if this is something, I don't know, any ideas on what we can do? And do we, as the HRC, because I know we have a subcommittee on housing and, economic justice and development, which encompasses housing. Is that something for that subcommittee to tackle? Or is it something that we're going to hear about later on today?
Well, there is an issue which is before the city council, which is whether to make downtown parking lots available for housing. One of the parking lots on the list happens to be on Ramona Street, right behind Avenidas. And they have had it's not a request for proposal, but request for interest. And Mid-Peninsula Housing and Alta Housing both said that would be a great place to build about 60 senior apartments. So at such time as the city council decides to move forward with making downtown parking lots available for housing, that one is would be a very strong candidate for senior housing.
So I tell you this, if you have 100 seniors show up for common and you have them show up for a few weeks in a row, you will move the needle in this city, because you will clearly say to them that those that you have the voting capital. Remember, we're a city of 65,000. The biggest vote winner only wins by a few hundred most times. If the seniors show up on a consistent basis and tell council, because what we have now, and this is my opinion, is we have those that make the most noise and have the narrowest interests guiding our policies. We need our groups, like our families. I would tell the same thing to young families. I would tell the same thing to seniors. I've told the same thing to the Jewish community. I've told the same thing to the MENA community. Show up and make noise, because when they start looking people in the face, they don't you change the trajectory of decisions made. Because I've watched enough council meetings where there aren't enough people in the room, and people will say whatever they want, and this doesn't matter, we don't do this is power, and then walk away. I as a senior organization, equipping the people, or getting a group of senior organizations to actually equip the people and say, hey, we're going to show up to say, the city of Palo Alto, this is an issue. We are a graying city, and we need to build senior housing, and we have all of these seats in here. Phil, get the vans that Avenida has, the drivers, drive them all here. Have them all here sitting 3 weeks in a row. I guarantee you'll start moving the needle.
How do we feel as a commission that we can help with the housing issue? Besides having seniors organize and come to the meetings, does anybody have any ideas? It does seem to me that being politically active is
because everything dies.
the best way.
Everything dies at council. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. There are clear stumbling blocks, and Commissioner Barr and so eloquently spoke to it in the history lesson when Maybell Housing, and people came and shouted with the 3 feet. People came and said it didn't work. So we need to have people in the city that are saying the opposite to the people up here, that their vote matters, because they will pay lip service to everyone until they start seeing voters and constituencies say this is important.
Just to take on to what you said, I think the other piece of it is that I think a lot of what has prevented people from supporting housing is often a fear that the folks who will come to affordable housing will not be similar enough to the current residents of Palo Alto. And I think that one of the really powerful things about having our seniors engaged is that because it is the senior homeowners who are often our large voting bloc, to see that it is their fellow peers who are actually in need of housing, I think that could be a powerful way to move the conversation forward in the city.
And there is another problem that the city economically is facing, which is the extensive number of vacant office buildings. And so the question comes up, how easy or complex would it be to convert a vacant office building to housing? And would there be any city or county or state money to help a nonprofit such as Alta Housing or Mid-Penn Housing acquire a vacant office building and initiate the process of transitioning to housing, because there are so many vacant office buildings. It's sad.
Thank you. I appreciate Commissioner Barr's reference of Maybell, because that's my community. And that's when that defeat is probably what made me want to think about becoming more politically active at the local level. It took me a while, but that was definitely the spur. And I want to remind us that that was a 7-0 vote or 9-0. I can't remember how big council was then. It was a unanimous vote at council level to build that housing. Everyone at council had agreed, we need that senior affordable housing. It was the community that put the referendum on the ballot and ultimately prevailed in turning it down. So this gets to the importance of educating not just leaders, but community members. When community members understand the issues and are asked to come forward with letters and to come speak in public comment, that's when things change for the good or for the better. So that's one thing, is being even more effective at educating the community. When there's an issue, it's letting people know about the agendas. How many members of our 68,000 person community are reading council agendas, HRC agendas, PTC agendas? Very few. But if we can get better at informing, hey, there's something coming up. If you care about this, we'd love to have you there. Just making people aware of when they can use their voice, I think, helps ungum the system. You know, when a project is coming before the Architectural Review Board and the PTC, that's a housing project. You know, I think we have a lot of people with the will wanting to build right now. Remember, the city rarely builds things. It's creating the conditions under which things can be built. So, you know, when we're talking about raising the height limit or adding greater density or what have you, being people collectively who are encouraging folks to come to public comment and say, yes, I'm in favor of that. Yes, I want more of that. So I think, in short, to me, it's all of us. We are all playing a role in this. The works of the city, you know, the gears move slowly, more slowly than would be the case in the corporate world. And that's the way it is. There's a lot of studying, a lot of fact finding. But I think right now, the temperature in this place, we are building more housing. You look at Wilton Court, you look at Mayfield Place, you look at Charities Housing, you look at 231 Grant and others. We are in the upswing again of building affordable projects. Where we're going to be fighting is it for seniors? Is it for teachers? Is it for developmentally disabled adults? Is it for kids aging out of foster care? Is it for low income, no matter what category you fall into? You know, sort of fighting for these limited spaces and dollars. And again, coming back to the HRC, I think that's where you can provide guidance on how the city ought to thoughtfully allocate these precious resources, particularly those 100% affordable places that could go up. You know, help us think through how to really put together the right patchwork, as opposed to, I fear, a ghettoization of people. We'll put those people over here and those people over here. The people perceived as unattractive or undesirable neighbors, whatever we know we have to have, right? I think, you know, your leadership can help us appreciate the value of everybody living together, the value of the downtown being filled with people from all different groups. And I think that's where your moral leadership, you know, and your actual vote-based and recommendation-based leadership can really be effective.
Thank you. So such a sage and sagacious way of putting stuff, council member. I think based on what the council member just said, maybe the group, the ad hoc committee that's doing housing, should have some level of dialogue about what housing looks like or what affordable housing looks like. Because the reality is, if all we do is build studio apartments and small apartments, the message we're sending is all we're doing is either putting our seniors in coops or building housing for the help. It's not for families. It's not for community. It's just studio apartments, 1 bedrooms. So I think, to council members' point, if we can have that level of dialogue and start talking to, for example, Avenidas, and say, what is a decent requirement for affordable housing for a senior? What is a decent requirement for a family with 2 partners and 2 children? Like, what are those?
So, go ahead, Commissioner. Barth.
I just had a quick suggestion. If you look at the liaison, the ad hoc subcommittees on our chart, the one that Mary Kate and Katie and I are on is labeled as Economic Justice and Development. I might suggest that it be renamed Economic Justice and Housing.
I think it already is.
It is.
You might have an older version of the sheet, but we did.
Oh, well, it has me on the
That, well,
list.
that is the double benefit then, but we changed it to, I think, housing, economic justice, and it had so housing did get added to that one.
Okay,
it's part of it.
okay, so this is an old name,
I
not,
think that is the correct name, but housing is part of it.
I thought we added the H,
Did we?
but
Well, we can.
I'll get back to you later.
Housing is part of
I
it.
think we have the right 2 people. I think we have the right 2 people
Okay.
looking at that.
3.
The right 3? Oh,
These 3
oh,
are the ad
that's
hoc
all.
subcommittee.
That's an
So
all-star
one of the
team.
action items can be for
So-
you 3
So
to
we
look into it and then come back and present to us.
So we have 3 items right now, right? For motion, we have the senior summit. We have the referencing to the questions to senior staff and the exit for the ad hoc committee to start looking at what is the right affordable housing in a moral ethical framework, not in just a units and names kind of thing. Does that make sense? Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're following the conversation along.
I will say that when you said senior summit, I thought that certainly sounds familiar. Well, the HRC did one in 2015.
Oh,
So
I wasn't here for that.
that sounds familiar to you, 9 years later.
So just, so there is something to work on. I think at any time there could be a specific aspect of it. I think this time, 10 years ago, it was, I think, really trying to understand what services that seniors needed and understanding their challenges and so forth. But the HRC can certainly, whatever subcommittee is on there, and maybe in dialogue with some of our key providers, saying, if you were to be in a room with 10 other providers, what do you think is the most important topic for all of you to talk about together?
I know this is sort of a tangential idea, but when I was running to be commissioner again, actually, I thought a lot about the role of this commission. And one of the things I think that's really great about our role in the HRC is that it can be a bit of a training ground or a bit of a baby step to becoming politically engaged and involved. I mean, I know we've had some pretty contentious meetings in the
No, we haven't.
spring. In the spring, there were
Not
a few.
really.
But even there, I feel like there were a lot of people coming who wouldn't normally have come, who felt like we had made a place that was inclusive and welcoming at a time when a lot of people felt unsafe. And I wonder if we can kind of continue down that trajectory. And maybe there's a way of using the HRCs as a platform for, you were talking about getting people to give public comment. I feel like this is a great practice ground for giving public comment. And maybe there's a way we can invite people to come and practice their public comments for the HRC, especially as we are, where we see topics where greater participation and could help move the needle to addressing some of the more vulnerable communities, which is our mission as the HRC. So something to think about and as well. I'm always struggling with what can we actually do? We're not the city council. But one of the things I think that we can do is provide a voice and provide a stepping stone for folks to use their voices.
I think I have a really pragmatic next step, which I think maybe our goal for the next year is to have at least one joint commission meeting with planning on a housing project so that we get that equity perspective in there. We get our perspective in there. We have now that our housing element is compliant. We now have 8 years to meet those goals or better exceed those goals and get rewarded by the state, or we're looking at pushbacks from the state. And there's, half of that is market rate housing, half of that is income restricted housing. And there's also affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements in there, which I feel like falls under our purview. And I feel like having joint meetings with them is just a really good next step.
Great. I think we can add that to our list. I think we've got 4.
Yeah, we can look.
Oh, this is gonna be a great motion when I make it. And I think also I saw a group, I was at a city council meeting. There was a group of people that lived in an apartment building and the city was supposed to maintain their parking lot, but they didn't, and the elevator smelled like pee. So they had like 8 of them show up. They all filled out public comment cards, and then they let one person do the talking. And those are the kind of things that like we can start encouraging and teaching groups. Because again, we don't have to take a stance on the issue, but you can equip people to take whatever stance they need to, because that's part of being in a healthy democracy, part of being a healthy community is equipping people to have voice.
Yes, Councilmember
It being relatively new to all of this in year 2 as a council member, I'm still learning the processes and procedures that lead to effective governance. And it strikes me that, for example, the Architectural Review Board and the PTC are inherently a part of the process of something going from an idea to a permitted project that's going to get built. The HRC doesn't have that same, you must meet with us, you can't get to council without getting through us. But just because it isn't inherently baked in, doesn't mean it can't happen. So for you all to take proactive perspectives on, the downtown lots that Commissioner Barr mentioned, San Antonio Road, where housing is going to go in, the new El Camino Focus Zone, where housing is going to be higher. For you all to be looking at what's going on at council, what council purports to be doing, what the city says it is, for you to be looking through your unique lens of equity. What are we going to notice that others are going to overlook? What do we want to draw attention to that will go unremarked upon unless we do? And then you all have a conversation on it. You all deliver a report wherever it needs to go. Your voice becomes a sort of insistent, I call you the character, the conscience of the city. That's how I refer to this board when I'm sitting up there as a council member, okay? So with that, and whether that's accurate or not, that's how I think of you. The conscience, keeping that equity lens, looking at things, with that filter, which might otherwise mean things are overlooked without your careful scrutiny. To me, that's a very exciting, proactive role for you to play, strategic, longer term. Yes. Sorry. it's
No,
not for me to say yes.
I'm not. No, I was asking for the chair to speak after you. No, go. I'm sorry. When I was the chair, I had the opportunity to sit with the other chairs of commissions, and it was a very educational moment when I was talking about housing, and then somebody was talking about the Palo Alto process and the requirement for us to look and be a certain way. And I think we can make good trouble.
I remember that meeting. I was also there.
Yeah,
We
the
haven't had one since. It's been a long time.
The ARB guy didn't like me by the end of it. He was
Yeah.
What happened to that?
Which one was that?
That was a meeting I thought it was going to happen more than once.
Well, you met with the PTC once on.
No,
This
it
was
was
a
the
meeting of
chairs.
all the chairs across
with
all
the
the commissions and vice chairs. That's why I went.
I think Mayor, I think it
Oh,
was,
staff was not invited. So
I think
I
that
was
was
not
by
there.
a council, that
That's
was
why it
by
didn't
the
sound
mayor
familiar.
at the time called it. So it's not like a
Mayor's
standard thing. But it was
Something for the council to
to
maybe
think about.
have happen again then.
Yeah, but 2 things I want to remind you of is still on, in the city's equity and inclusion plan, there was something that the assistant city manager brought to you is working with the HRC to be in concert or training with other commissions on looking at items through an equity and inclusion lens. So that is an important thing that when the time is right, that will come to you. But the only counsel I wanted to give, because I think when it comes to issues like housing, we can get really excited. And I agree with the council member that like looking at specific projects and HRC maybe having a voice. I might just, as your subcommittee meets, I'm looking at the 3 subcommittee members, just being honest and thinking about what you can take on. Is it like, are you this year going to focus maybe on housing projects for seniors or for families? If you have the capacity to do more, but I'd rather, not mire yourself in all these different processes and commissions and not being able to have the impact that you might like. And it might just be following 1 or 2 projects. That's up to you to consider, but just some thought that I had.
Thank you, Minka.
I agree with Minka about being strategic, because there's advantages to picking the right project and getting a win. But I also, as Minka was speaking, how do we teach different constituencies to fish instead of giving them the fish, right? Like, how do we create more political advocacy and clarity in different categories such as seniors, young families? Like, I agree. So as that group meets, I think there's two sides. Pick something that is strategic and that is a win, and you have your ducks in a row, and there's right energy behind it, and you might get Avenidas to back you, like however that works. But also think about ways that after this project, there are groups in the city that have the wherewithal to say, hey, I'm going to show up to council because this project, we have, not everybody in our community is watching, but there's 1 or 2 people watching, so they know what's happening in city. Like, how do we get people to, and I don't know, and that's for your subcommittee to figure, but I would be like, that would be a question I'd be asking myself, because as my time on this commission rolls off, there are moments that I will say this: great meetings, great results, but I wish I had thought more about how do I systematize this or equip people to do longer term work. So, in my reflection, I would encourage you to start thinking that way.
I like that a lot, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. And also, I find that when I'm sitting up here, I'm trying to be an advocate for everybody in the city, but the people in the city can choose what they're advocating for. Here I'm trying to be just and fair and listen to everyone. But it does mean that you need the counterpart to that. So for the advocates to advocate for what their needs are. One thing that I was thinking about, sorry, to go back to the housing and the need for caregiving and affordable housing for caregivers. I would love to know from the city, and I don't know if we have these statistics, how many seniors are actually homeowners? And are they interested in building ADUs? And can the city provide subsidies for that? I know that one of my neighbors is a homeowner, and she rents out rooms in her house, to make up for her budget. So I know that it's happening. I'm just curious as if we have any data on maybe seniors who rent out rooms, and any interest in building ADUs or renting out rooms maybe they don't feel like it's safe, in a safer way. Yes.
I think it's a brilliant notion that seniors might be aided by the city in approaching their later years with a home that they've got that Maybe they need to downsize, maybe it's too big, maybe they need the rental income from an ADU, maybe they want to move into the ADU and rent the bigger place to a young family. It's a way to create more housing stock while looking after seniors who are already homeowners at the same time. And I think it's a lovely nexus of a bunch of different goals that would be wonderful to explore. Could the city have a fast track option for seniors? San Jose, for example, has an ADU czar. You go in on Tuesdays without an appointment, you want to build an ADU. San Jose is committed that 5% of its housing will be ADUs, and they have figured out how to fast track that process. Maybe we have a version of that that's seniors only. I don't know. That's an idea that I think is brilliant. Relatedly, just made me think of something else. I'm sorry. Hold on.
I know how that
Oh,
goes.
I know. I'm sorry. Up in Marin, there's a nonprofit that works with seniors who don't have heirs. Seniors who own a home that's fully paid off, that they're hoping to live in for the remainder of their lives, and they don't have anyone to leave that home to. They work with the seniors in a non-predatory way to say, we will pay for the repairs on this place. We will make sure it is kept, you are kept in a safe and comfortable environment. And when you pass on, the home will come to this nonprofit that is basically a land trust that is going to turn that, it's not a developer who's going to sell it off for millions. It's someone who's going to ensure that that home stays in the community's inventory for affordable housing. It's another way to protect seniors while ensuring that the housing stock grows and is rehabilitated and is preserved as an affordable aspect of the housing inventory.
Interesting. I've never heard of it, so. So Minka, how do we go about finding out that information? And
I can be in dialogue with our planning department colleagues. I can start with my colleagues that were here tonight, and they could direct me to the right person if it's not them. I sometimes get confused if it's current planning or advanced planning of the folks that would have this kind of information. I don't think, we have the forthcoming rental registry, the information on like individual rooms, that's not something we're going to find out about through that. But I think it's a very interesting question. So I if you'd like to, so you can keep track of, I'm happy to look into this. Sometimes you all like to make it a recommendation to keep track of progress. But technically you can't give recommendations to staff to do something, but I'm more than happy to look into this for you.
well, I'm wondering if maybe that's something else that.
Yeah, we can look into it. And I could pull it up. I did, during the listening session with Avenidas, it came up, I think, a roommate idea. And there was discussion of the fact that it had been tried. And I followed up with them, and I'm going to see if I can pull up and I can share with you afterwards.
Okay, because I know about HIP housing in San Mateo County and Catholic, it was done for a home sharing program for a while, and it was through Catholic Charities, and then it went away, but then they got some funding to try it again, and it failed again.
Okay, yeah.
Right, Michelle? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yep. Doesn't mean we can't try a third time.
I just think that is a program that is like not a policy. I see the HRC doing like some of the things we talked about, but actually running a program like that is beyond your scope.
Just ideas.
I think anytime you start putting other people in people's spaces, you are fraught with challenges. I think we need to stick to policy rather than diplomacy.
But I think that a policy can be like the ADU building, having a fast track or subsidy. And I don't, maybe, to see if there's an interest, even if we have that data, or even how many houses are there that could.
So this could be part of a general goal, but I would know, it wouldn't be just tell Minka to do this. It's like explore ways in which senior housing could blah, 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 and then that subcommittee might do something, I would know, I would follow up on this and so forth.
It also seems like this could go hand in hand with a visit to the planning commission. So if we did the legwork to look at some of these alternative models and policies, that might be an interesting thing to discuss with the planning folks.
I think that would have to be
I mean, we'd have to
something that was
figure it out
definitely
here.
teed up, or, you
Yeah.
know, how such a meeting
Yeah,
would come to be. I think this is definitely staff level first.
But I also think you guys need to check with the ARB because they know how to shift the project around real quick. So don't forget them as you look at it. Can I make a motion, Chair?
Yes.
Oh, okay, here
I
we
think we're
go.
ready.
Can you wait till Elena gets up a
Well,
piece of paper to write on?
okay. I move that based on the listening session for seniors, we have the following. It's 4 recommendations. Recommendation number, we have 4 actions, not recommendation, 4 actions. The first action is the senior ad hoc committee look into planning a senior summit with service providers for the senior community. We have a senior ad hoc committee, is that correct? We have an aging.
We do?
We had aging at one point, didn't we?
We don't have that anymore.
we have an economic housing, whatever it's called, committee. Michelle and I put together the listening session
Okay.
last year.
is not on this.
So what committee is that?
Economic development.
Economic development. It's the Economic Development Committee. Thank you, I'm sorry. We had an aging committee for years, didn't we?
We did, and that ended right around COVID. We had an
Okay.
aging committee and age friendly.
I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Justice.
What was this?
Economic justice and development.
Yeah. What are you looking for?
A second one.
Oh, the second item. So one is the senior.
I don't think so.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
so-
housing is part of it.
Housing is part of
Queries with
it.
the
Yes.
transit officer
Um,
around elderly health needs and trans inter-county
yes.
services.
The second is to interface with the head of transportation for the city to do dialogue around transportation options and possible partnerships or, yes. Was that the correct language, Minka?
I'm sorry, I was looking up the other thing. On the work plan, it does say housing, economic justice and development. So
Okay.
that just didn't get translated to the liaisons page.
You're right. Okay.
I
It is
knew
HEJD.
I remember the acronym. Commissioner Smith, can you repeat your question?
I'm just want to make sure that I have the correct language. Interface with the head of transportation for the city to look at transportation options that already exist, and possible partnerships for seniors. After options go that already exist and possible partnerships for seniors.
Yeah, I think it was I'd have to look. We can change the official title once we get to this. I thought it was more,
I think you wanted
it was more to like explore the work. Did you want to know what they knew about what other cities were doing about transportation
No.
for cities? Or did you want to kind
based,
of nudge him to do more for seniors.
Based on your recommendation, you said we needed to do some due diligence to know what the city existed, what partnerships with regional
Right.
stuff. So I think this is just the first step of a bigger piece, but I can't like give the end goal. I'm just giving like the first step.
Let's see, it's the city's chief transportation officer, I think that's his title, to become better aware of transportation systems in Palo Alto and the area as they relate to seniors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't ask me to say that again.
Interface with the
To look
city's
at
chief of to look at existing transportation options.
In Palo Alto and surrounding communities. for
And surrounding
seniors.
communities. And for seniors.
Surrounding communities. So that's,
As the first step. As the first step in a broader discussion around transportation options for seniors.
why don't we just put, instead of that, I'm talking to the chief transportation office, to the city's, I'll look at the specific title.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go to number 3. First step on a broader conversation about.
Let Elena finish number 2 though. She's
Okay.
Interface.
First step to a broader conversation about senior transportation options. Number 3, Housing, Economic Justice and Development Ad Hoc Committee. Will work with staff on possibly organizing joint meetings with planning and ARB. Planning Commission, yes, and ARB.
It's Architectural Review Board.
Yeah. Well, someone was, yeah,
And it's the
maybe-
Office of
oh, yeah.
Transportation on the earlier one.
this one I think I'm just gonna, which was, I just want to look into like the San Jose ADUs are and this one. And I think those are both really interesting. So I think the subcommittee.
Yes, that we
No, I
have
would
to
just
move
put
on.
with the Office of
We have to move on.
Transportation,
That
so
will be
whoever I
something.
get. Okay.
Yes. Can I just add one piece? You know what? I'll just put it on the record. I can't put it in the motion, but I will ask the Housing, Economic and Justice and Development Ad Hoc Committee, as you look at the Senior Summit, really look at how we activate senior advocacy in city environments. I can't put that in the motion, but I'll just put it on the record. I think we're done.
Question, does this then mean that since the document, that the project goal number 5 is housing, economic justice and development, but the liaison ad hoc committees that we handed out still labeled it as economic justice and development, does this mean that the
I'll
ad
just
hoc?
update the form.
Those forms are wrong.
Well, we need to correct the form.
Yes.
Yeah, that's no
Okay, do
problem.
we need an action or?
No.
No,
are we
you
saying
don't.
this is
That's a
now-
typo.
The ad hoc committee is now the housing, economic justice and development.
That's how it is
ad
in the
hoc
work
committees.
plan.
It's in, that's how it is in the work plan.
Yeah,
but-
that's just for us. That's,
Okay.
it's just a
so
mistake.
That is our ad hoc committee's name now.
Yes.
Okay.
Can
so-
I actually ask a question? So where is the work? Or is that just something the ad hoc Housing and Economic Justice Committee is going to take on? to possibly follow a project from start to finish. Is that something separate, or is that something you all just do on your,
I would say,
as the committee?
okay,
Minka, when you say project, do you have a particular project? You mean the senior summit?
No. I'm talking, there was some discussion by the commission on,
Oh, housing projects.
a housing project,
Yeah.
and possibly picking a constituency or a type of project or a project that you might want to follow or have advocacy for. Is that something you want as a recommendation, or is that something you as a subcommittee will just discuss at your next meeting?
I think it's something we'll discuss, and I think that that seniors are likely to be on the top of that list.
mhm.
But I don't think that will be the only constituency, potentially.
I think they would have to bring back something that could be motionable, Minka. I don't think there's anything they could bring tonight that we could make a motion for a project.
I hear you.
Yeah, I think they would have to explore.
Like number one, do you want to put that ad hoc will explore creating a senior
Sure.
summit, or?
Yeah.
I like the action of create.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind. I think it's,
Cute.
Okay, I think,
Elena, can you take the commas off between economic and justice? So it should be housing, comma, economic justice, comma, and development.
No,
That's how we did
It's
it.
between
economic and justice.
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
between economic and just.
Economic
It's economic,
justice is one
economic
title.
justice.
Yes, and development. That's great. All right.
If you could just add, Elena, ad hoc subcommittee, put the sub.
I think I made a motion.
I second your commotion, your commotion.
My commotion.
You second
I
your
love it.
commotion.
Commissioner Stimler seconds it. Are you ready to vote? Or any comments before? It's been a long time since we made motions. So any comments before we vote?
I just wanted to give the regular reminder as a former housing organizer, when we are out in our networks and at events, encourage people to give public comments if you know a housing project is coming up. Because I can tell you right now, having a lot of conversation across the city, every neighborhood wants more housing, but getting those people to public comment, not everybody has the time or bandwidth to, so help encourage them and help get them out.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, we're going to vote. Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stimler,
Yes.
Commissioner Barr,
Yes,
Commissioner Causey,
Yes.
Chair Everly, yes. The motion passes.
Can I thank Commissioner Stimler for her phenomenal work on another project. The senior project, she's done a phenomenal job, and I just want to highlight that. You got the people in the audience nodding. See, look, they clap. Yeah. So thank you for the phenomenal work.
All right, thank you. All right, I guess we can move on to our fourth business item. The updates, report from ad hoc subcommittees on next steps identified for items listed on the FY 2024-25 HRC work plan that has not yet been approved by the city. Minka, do you have an update on when we're
Still
I'm gonna
tentative
present
for
that?
October 7th.
October 7th?
For clarification, are we the only commission, or is it across?
No.
It's all of them.
Oh.
Okay.
We couldn't. Nah, I'm not gonna say nothing.
I get, all right. We can start with public health. Is there an update?
We met. Anything you'd want to, we're kind of getting the ball rolling. We actually had a question for you that was
Yes.
complicated because of, I forget what it's called, but it was complicated. Have you been attending the mayor's working group on mental health? And if so, yes. And if so, does it make sense to swap out with someone on the subcommittee, or do you want to join our subcommittee? Or, you know what I'm
can't.
saying? The challenge.
Yes, so They have not had a meeting since I
Okay.
joined.
Okay,
We've exchanged emails or emails, and I was made aware and emailed about the Youth Mental Health Summit that's
Yep.
happening in October. They just announced it.
there's one on Tuesday too. It's coming
That
Tuesday.
one,
Yeah.
yes, that's
With
a
the
different
schools,
one.
okay.
So I don't mind. It does make, when I took this on, it was before these
Yes,
subcommittees were
totally.
formed. Is it easy to swap? I mean, I understand it makes sense.
You haven't been to any meetings yet, have you?
No, they haven't had
Then
any.
you can just contact the mayor and let him know that you'd like to swap out. And
Me-
that, it's as easy as that.
Minka,
Who would like to be?
just
Sorry, go
for,
ahead.
is this commission going to last beyond this year? Since this was a commission called by a mayor?
It's a temporary commission. It's not something that's ongoing to the best of my knowledge. Now, the climate change one is something different. There's going to be the youth version of that. But this one, I think, is just,
And they already planned without calling a meeting? They
they
planned an
have
event
been meeting
without,
all last spring.
we haven't been there?
But that was before you all decided you wanted to be a part of it.
Oh,
So they were not excluding you. It was just a project that had already started.
So I'm happy to have someone else. I'm not positive on if
Yeah,
anything is going to happen from now
yeah,
to the
that's
summer.
totally fine, but I wonder, Commissioner Barr, given your public health expertise, if you would be the right person from the commission to join those meetings?
I would be happy to. I would also reach out to Shashank Joshi, Dr. Joshi, who may have already been reached out, but recall when when the high schools had their clusters, and Dr. Joshi worked with the high schools to really put mental health into the education of the high schools. And if we're going to have a citywide kind of review of adolescent mental health, there's no one more than Dr. Joshi I would like to have part of it.
I'm pretty sure. So this committee has already made a meeting for 3 to 4 months. So, and I know that many of the players on the committee are folks that have been part of mental health work for a while. So if Dr. Yoshi isn't on the present one, I think it wasn't as part of an oversight. So I don't think there's the work right now of adding more people to it, as far as I know, because I think in the beginning, they worked to try to find a well-rounded committee.
And they're definitely aware of Dr. Joshi, as I emailed them and gave them his name just in case. So
If I'm going to be the representative, I may also myself reach out to Dr. Joshi. That Dr. Joshi and my son, who's in medical school, worked for a summer together on how to incorporate this into the educational program in the high school. And they published a paper, and my son got to be an author on the paper with Dr. Joshi. So.
okay, I can do that. Anything else for you guys to report? Yes, Commissioner Causey?
Oh, do you want me to go into the housing? Sure.
Just trying to go, so if there's nothing else on public health, we can go over to housing, economic justice and development. Commissioner Causey?
So the two actions that we decided on for the next year is to have a goal of a listening session on childcare in the city and a listening session on paths to home ownership for renters, exploring opportunity to purchase acts, co-ops, social housing, et cetera.
Great, thank you.
And Commissioner Causey, let's make sure we add some of the programs that the council person recommended to us, the ADUs are, and the Marin Heirs nonprofit public land trust idea. I think both of those, although they're somewhat separate, I think they are sort of alternative policy structures that would be interesting to investigate.
Thank you Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I drove all the way to Danville today because that's where somebody could afford a house to bless their house because they couldn't afford a house in Palo Alto and childcare was too much. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Climate change, I can speak to it. Mink and I have talked about, we have plans on bringing somebody from utilities to come speak to us. Is that going to happen in October or?
I'm not sure if it's going to happen in October. I
Okay.
can be in dialogue with them again.
So we're going to have somebody come and talk to us about that and demystifying utilities in Palo Alto and how somehow it's just always going up. And then we are also bringing somebody from the Safe Streets Action Plan, which actually, as I listened to Commissioner Stimler's report today, kind of crosses over with what we heard on the listening sessions from the elders. So, all right.
Right, the Safe Streets, the city staff member associated with that will come once their draft action plan or draft work that a consultant is doing is ready. So it just wasn't ready for today's meeting.
So that's what's on tap. And then, of course, once the Youth Advisory Board is selected, one of us will be on that as liaison. So. And then we have inclusion and belonging. Do you want to speak to it? You got the notes.
So we met and we came away with 3 points, which Mary Kate has already did one of the points, which was the seniors. That's why I was thanking her so profusely because she covered a third of my work plan. One of our big goals in inclusion and belonging was conducting listening session with local faith leaders to better understand their needs and the community that they serve. We have done that. The next step, I think now we want to recommend as an ad hoc committee is to work with city staff and the city manager and faith leaders to better understand the ways the city functions and what resources they have. So maybe setting up a lunch and learn where somebody from planning and somebody from utilities and just teach the faith leaders what programs are available and who to call for what, just demystify the city or demystify the red tape kind of moment. So that is one recommendation for our liaison to the police department. We would like to recommend create an advisory council to the police department made up of faith leaders and an HRC member that meets once a quarter. I sit on the Mountain View one where they have a faith leader group. And it's a great interchange because it's a great discussion, like what's going on with the city. Tell your congregation that maybe burglars have been up, so be more careful. Or we have, block night or whatever. So we would want to make that recommendation through whoever our liaison is to the chief and see if we can get that to go. To continue the work done to create connections and learn about the lived experience of community members. We know that in January, San Mateo County said loneliness was a health emergency. They declared it as a health emergency in San Mateo County. So create a campaign to bring back the stoop and encourage neighbors to apply for the neighborhood block party grant. Pick one day in the summer or spring or summer for all neighborhoods to come out, possibly have the faith community be hubs, just finding ways to combat loneliness in a way that is low barrier to entry, just walk out your door kind of thing. So that is what we have. Did I miss anything, Chair?
No, you got it.
I read your notes perfectly.
Minka, I have a question about this we really like the idea. I don't know how the rest, I wanted to know how the rest of the commission felt about this idea of getting neighbors, like pick a day for neighbors to apply for the grants. I don't know how many we'll get. Hopefully a lot so that the city will, I don't know.
Yeah, I did
There'll be
look
too
into
many.
that, and I think there's a 50% of the funding available this year is already gone, because it is a very popular, it's the Know Your Neighbor grant. So it's, I think there's,
So this will be for next year.
yeah,
So is
so
it available like January 1st?
I'm pretty sure it would probably be per fiscal year.
So it'll be
Okay, what's the-
available
So
again in
then
July.
it would be, so July 1st.
Okay, so if we picked a date after July 1st and
Yes, we
put the
could,
word out to apply for the grant but for this particular date, then people could.
Like a fall
like-
fest or back to school.
they
fest.
could. I mean, I think it depends on how much, I think there's like 5,000 to 7,000. It's not a huge grant. I talked to my colleague a while back about it, and I don't think,
I think it's $500 maximum
That's
for
good,
the
though.
grant. And
And it's not,
if you apply as a neighborhood association, it
Yeah.
goes up, I think, to 1,000.
oh, okay.
But if you apply as
We just did it as a block.
just as your walk, then it's, I believe the other amount.
and I think the idea is just to get everyone to, come out of their houses.
Right.
We talked about is the fact that a lot of the houses in Palo Alto don't have porches. Most people are on the back of their houses when they're hanging out, so they are not out there to see their neighbors or, talk to their neighbors. So I love Halloween. Like, I decorate my house because I love people coming by and talking to us. It's such a great opportunity to meet people. So what we were thinking about is just picking a date, spreading out, spreading the word about the grant. And if people don't have to, if there's no more grant money, then what a great problem to have, isn't that a news story that everybody applied, everybody wants to get to know their neighbors, but it gets people on one day in concert all over the city to just come out, put chairs on the sidewalk and, just visit with their neighbors.
Does Palo Alto have a national night out program? Because that's what it sounds like.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It
I
did.
don't
It
think
was about a month to 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
There was.
So
I
maybe
missed
next,
There was,
well, maybe
a
next-
lot of it was, a lot of it is law enforcement. I remember the early days,
Yeah.
like law enforcement would go out to like individual neighborhoods. And I think the last couple of years, there's been like a lot of PD and fire department equipment and people came to
That's different.
them.
That's not,
No, I hear you.
Yeah, it needs to be decentralized.
Scrap my, I like your idea.
I mean,
and it can tie
so
in with the Palo Alto way
I think,
of neighbors, being
Uh,
friends with neighbors.
but I do think if you talk, I think Chief Bender is open to dialogue. He's been very reasonable with the stuff we worked with him. Maybe if we present it this year, he could say, okay, let's make it happen.
But I don't actually like the idea of it being police or fire department centered. I really like the idea of being kind of a grassroots movement where it's just neighbors just coming out and getting to know each other in the neighborhoods. And that's it. So. Any other comments about that? I just wanted to get a pulse for what the commission thinks.
I think it's a great thing. I think we should have some database of people from when we did the race reconciliation groups. So we do have some database of houses and communities and neighborhoods. And we also have all the nonprofits in the city that can help get it to their people. So I think we can get real legs around it. I think it's going to be a lot of emailing, but I think it's worth doing.
So that's something that we're gonna explore, and it sounds like it would be a date after July 1st.
If we make it a commission-wide activity, I'm happy to help.
Definitely.
We can invite the planning committee, the planning commission, and the ARB to it.
Okay, so I think that's it for the updates.
Can I ask a
Yes.
favor?
Yes.
Is can each of the subcommittees, because I tried to take notes, but if each of the subcommittees can email, why don't we say Elena, with all the things that you just said, the action items. Because at one point, I mean, we have to have the sense, the chair and the vice chair have to have a sense, is that something you all will just be off doing? Or is that something you imagine at a specific date that you would want to or need to bring it back to the commission? So if in that, if you could also put back, can't need to bring back to the commission, would love to come between December and February. If you can do that for each of the items, that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Minka, because that would be super helpful for
Yes.
the chair and the vice chair. Thank you. And especially the listening sessions, if you have a meeting in mind that works, then let us know so we can start planning around it.
Chair can look at it forward.
Yes. So we're going to move on to city official reports. First, commissioner reports. Does anybody have a report? I'm going to make a report. Do you want me to go?
Why not? I should go first.
Doesn't matter.
Well,
Why don't I go first? Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead with my report. So I would like to address the controversy surrounding the 9/11 multi-faith peace picnic that happened yesterday. First of all, I wanted to clarify that although the HRC has been a supporter in the past, this year we did not get the request in time, so it was never up for a vote at our August meeting. Therefore, the HRC never pulled its support from the picnic. Okay? Vice Chair Krause and I did opt to support the event personally. Vice Chair Krause could not be here tonight, but she did want me to share her reasons for pulling support. So I'm going to read what she sent me. And this is from her. Okay. Sorry. She wants me to share what she sent to the organizer, which was, I have sent an email to your Gmail account withdrawing support for this evening's event because of the recent addition of CARE as a co-sponsor. Can't do it, Samina, very sadly. Association to CARE is a deal breaker for me, the president, and the White House. Please do not use my name in any format, Dr. Michelle Krause. So this was her personal reason for pulling out, and this is what she sent. Now, I also opted to not go to the event and withdraw my support. And I'm going to share what I wrote to the organizer, which was, I am writing to withdraw my support for the picnic today. As head of the HRC, I strive to support all members of our Palo Alto community. My goal is to bring people together and not cause more division. Now, I am not, I do not, this is what I sent her. Now I'm going to address you. I am not going to argue over the merits of CARE as an organization. The reason I did what I did was because I was informed that our Jewish community, maybe not all of it, but a significant portion, including synagogues that were going to support, but then withdrew their support, were very upset about CARE co-sponsoring the event. I personally think they have legitimate reasons for being upset. The way I see it, the executive director's comments regarding October 7th would be upsetting to the Jewish community.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that's unreasonable to be upset about the statements that were made.
Mhm.
I also understand that according to Ms. Sundas, CARE has always been a co-sponsor. Now, I will say that they do not show as a co-sponsor on the website. The website does say that there are many other co-sponsors. There are several that are listed, but they're not one of them. Now, that may be that they've been a sponsor throughout the years, but I think things have changed since last September. And for the record, I would take any community's concerns to heart before attending or supporting an event. Also for the record, HRC supported and members attended the Solidarity Celebration Picnic to commemorate Juneteenth and Eid ul-Adha. Somebody from the MENA community came to us and asked for support. I put that on the agenda and we voted and unanimously voted to support it. And members attended. HRC members also attended the Interfaith Iftar dinner held in March. So we've attended events from all the communities. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood where I was coming from. But it hurts for me to know that we have so many community members in pain. It's not an easy task to sit up here. And, this was my personal decision. And these are my reasons for making it. So, Commissioner Stimler.
It also is incredibly painful to see so much of our community in pain. And when I attended the city council meeting where we discussed several items related to inclusion, there was public comment around that mentioned similar concerns about I think a protest that Carr had been a part of or something. I don't remember the exact details of that, but I went home that night very upset because the portrayal of what was happening in our community was so extreme that I decided to do a bit of research, as I usually do when I'm upset or anxious about something. And I did look up some of the things that were said about concerns around Carr after the city council meeting. And for example, there was a suggestion that they support Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization and any support for them would be considered highly illegal. And of course, I would not ever support any form of terrorism. And so, of course, I was concerned that maybe there are people in our community who were, this is hard, that were supporting that kind of extremism, and that really upset me. But when I looked up, so after September 7th, there was a video posted of the founder and president of Carr, and he had said something very inflammatory. But in that video, which was posted to inflame, that video was posted to inflame the situation, and it was taken out of context, and Carr did release his full comments. And I want to read them because I do agree with this part of the comment, which is that the hatred, the prejudice, the violence, the discrimination against Jews because of their faith or their life or their religious mindset, behavior, and action, we as human beings, as Muslims, as Palestinians, see it as the evil that it is. That to me does not sound like support for a terrorist organization. Similarly, there's concern that the president had said that he supported Hamas. What he had said that it was in 1994, which was before Hamas had ever committed a suicide bombing. So his stance has obviously changed since then. And from what I read about his beliefs online, it did seem like Carr is an organization dedicated to peace and to ending discrimination. And so I felt comfortable, even though I did see that Carr was a co-sponsor of the event, attending because of what I had read in that statement online, I did it as an act of hopefully increasing peace. I brought my daughter, and I was actually very happy to see members of our Jewish community there, including some of the people who were upset, rightfully for their reasons, about the city's support. And as they said today, it was a beautiful event, but I just hope that I went to the Juneteenth celebration with my daughter. I went to the Iftar celebration with my daughter. I went to this with my daughter. I feel like it is very important for us as a city to come together and to open our hearts to one another whenever possible. And that is what I try to do and encourage others to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Simler. Any other commissioner reports? Okay. Councilmember Lithcott Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A member of the public commented earlier that I was at the Multi-Faith Peace Picnic, and so I want to acknowledge that I was, and I saw Commissioner Stimler and her daughter there. And as I tried to, I applaud you for the amount of research that you did to try to get to the backstory behind the story, because so much of our rhetoric today and feelings are quite heated and near the surface. And so it behooves us all to try to make the effort you did, but most don't. I think my perspective was in trying to find common ground and build it and strengthen it, in trying to build a bigger tent, we're inherently inviting in under the tent people with whom we disagree. Now, if someone's calling for your destruction, you don't want them in your tent. But short of that, there are people with great differences. And if we can bring people together for a peace event about 9/11, created by the Muslim community, who were the scapegoats of 9/11, maybe we achieve something bigger. And so that was the reason I decided to attend despite the controversy. And I too found it to be a really joyous event. The warmth, the vibe was, emblematic of the type of community that I think we feel we are. And last night we were. I don't have a report other than to say your report to City Council back on August 19th was extraordinary. I thought your efforts with the listening sessions were well reported and well received. And it was a lovely opportunity to highlight to the broader community the work of the HRC. So hats off to you. Good job. And let's keep going. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot. Had that happened after our last meeting? It's been so long. I was probably supposed to report on that as well, but we did present. Commissioner Stimler and I went before City Council to talk about the AANHPI Lives report and the result of the listening sessions and our recommendations to City Council. Sorry, I forgot.
Just a little note that one of the, whether direct or indirect result of that listening session was that the Avenidas Chinese Community Center is about to double the amount of space it has for its activities in the Cumberley Community Center, including a restroom.
Are we invited to go eat there? I thought you said restaurant. Oh, restaurant. I was like, restaurant?
Yeah,
Wait.
no, restroom. If you need to go while you're there, I'm sure.
All right. Any other reports? No? Okay. Minka?
Sure, I have several things. One is to remind you all that you're warmly invited on to the Boards and Commission Recognition event later this month. You have received an individual invitation to that. If you did not, let myself or Elena know. The second thing is to highlight the event that is a direct result of the listening session and the work of the Human Relations Commission. It is a community forum called Creating a Safer Community, Understanding and Defining Hate Crimes. So former Commissioner Savage and a Vice Chair Kraus are on that subcommittee, and it has a wonderful headlining of 3 law enforcement officers from Palo Alto, the district attorney, and from the FBI. Mayor Stone will be facilitating it, and we will send you you all have a flyer. We will be sending you the link because you all have a job, and I've been directly instructed on this by the subcommittee. And I will create some kind of Google Doc that'll list, just like we did, I think, for the AANHPI, a whole group of folks that we can reach out to attend. And you can put in there folks that you have let know about the event. The subcommittee has a goal that each of you will bring 8 to 10 people to the event. So if you can do that, that would be great. Say specifically, would love Pastor Coloma Smith, Chair, Commissioner Smith.
We can send it to Dr. Eileen Altman and
Yes.
Pastor Paul Taylor, and they will do a regular distribution.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we do need to know at a certain time if more than 4 people of the HRC will be there, because then it would be considered an HRC meeting, because this is an issue that will most definitely come back to the HRC. So what that just means, it doesn't really look that much different. We'd probably, there's a quorum, you'd sit up in front, we'd have Adriana, the chair, call you to order, and Elena would do roll call, and then the chair would say, and the discussion topic tonight is this, and she'd turn it over to the mayor, and at the end, we would say, the Q&A would serve as the public comment time, and we would just officially close out the meeting. We've done this many times in the past for a whole series of HRC events. So because that involves noticing, I would like to know probably in the next couple weeks if actually, yeah, I would say by next Friday, because I think there's interest on the city's end that if it is an HRC meeting, that it is televised. So then it would involve Elena working with MidPen to get the event televised, so it'd have to be on their schedule.
Minka, I am thoroughly confused.
Okay.
When was this brought to the commission to say that this would be a commission event that we voted on?
That was one of your recommendations from the listening session that happened on March, whatever date that was. This was one of the 8 recommendations. It was the last one.
It won't be, will it be recorded?
We're not sure if it's going to be recorded, if it's not an HRC member, a meeting. And I'd probably want to know sooner than later, because we may adjust the flyer to know that people who are giving comment will know that it is being recorded, because I always want people to have that expectation that it will be a public meeting.
But if it's not, if less than 3 of us or 4 or 3 of us go, then it will be not, it will unlikely be recorded, and there probably won't be a public comment, right? Because
there will be a Q&A
or
session.
Q&A, but not like a public comment situation. Okay.
Correct.
I almost feel like it really changes the vibe to make it a commission hearing.
We've done it before. It's very quick. Yeah, I'm just still puzzled, but I'll stay puzzled.
Okay, so, yeah, if you can, I'm happy to answer any more questions about the event, but I think it would be important to know by maybe mid next week.
Is there
if you
anyone
are
who for
coming.
sure can't make it?
I assume I can't make it.
Okay, so you can't make
I
it.
can't make it.
You can't make it.
Okay, so let me just write that down.
Yeah, 1, 2.
No, Katie. no,
So there's 4 of us that might be able to make it.
So who, was someone else here?
So
that
it'd
said
be
they-
Michelle, Amy, Adriana, and I are potentially and Don, actually, so it's 5. Yeah.
Okay, so just let me know. So I have 2 no's already. So that brings you down to 5. So we'd have to go down to 3 for it not to be a public meeting.
Ironically, it's just not a good time for me, but I would like to, I'd like to see it recorded, but I can't. Ironically, if I go, it won't be recorded, so it's kind of a catch-22.
Okay. Let me think if I have anything else. Just a reminder, I think Elena knows this more than I, but if you haven't already contacted your agencies for your social visits with the HISREP agencies, please do so. I know some of you already have. Go ahead, Elena.
And if you have contacted them, but they have not responded, please let me know and we can come up with alternative contact information or maybe another person. Thank you.
Okay. I guess that's it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.